On the morning of October 26, 1597, an old admiral steered 13 battered warships toward an invasion fleet filling the horizon. Against his 13 came at least 130 warships with hundreds of transports and seasoned boarding troops behind them. The invasion commanders expected a quick crossing, a crushed remnant, and an open sea road toward the Korean capital. Instead, before the tide turned again, their leading squadrons had broken formation, lost command, and fled through drifting wreckage. So how did 13 exhausted ships make a crowded armada defeat itself inside water too narrow for its full strength to deploy? Before we rewind, subscribe if this kind of strategic breakdown gives you something. The next turn changes the entire battle. To understand why that question seemed absurd, return 2 months to a coastline where Korea's navy appeared finished beyond repair. A previous commander had met the invaders in open water, ignored warnings, and delivered his fleet into a prepared encirclement. The surviving inventory read like an accountant's joke: 12 serviceable warships, scattered cannon, wet powder, and crews without confidence. On one dock, a clerk counted cracked oars beside a rice bowl left under ash from the warehouses behind him. Fishermen pulled doors from burned storehouses for firewood. Sailors traded uniform cloth for millet and lamp oil at dusk. The royal court saw no fleet, only 13 liabilities consuming grain. Its order proposed service on land for everyone. On paper, that was rational. The enemy controlled ports, sea lanes, supply depots, and possessed the confidence that victory creates. Then the court recalled the old admiral, released from chains after officials had blamed him for refusing a doomed order. He arrived without ceremony, his shoulders marked by confinement, his rank restored on paper, while his damaged command existed as lists. He was no polished hero. He kept records, inspected rope fibers, questioned pilots, and remembered which officers embellished reports. His first conclusion sounded insane. If the Navy abandoned the sea, the invasion army would feed without interruption ashore. Roads through southern Korea were mud, mountain, and broken bridges. Ships could carry what carts and oxen could not. That made the remaining fleet more than a weapon. It was the cork inside the enemy's supply bottle at sea. This distinction seemed academic. It was not. Lose the ships and the enemy could move an army by water. At the southern anchorage, 13 hulls strained against ropes. Their decks carried patched planks and cannon from lost vessels. Yet these ships possessed one advantage hidden beneath their scars: broad decks, strong sides, and flat bottoms built for coasts. They could turn in confined water and absorb rough currents. The invasion vessels preferred speed, formation, and room for boarding. In open sea, 13 ships were targets. Inside a narrow channel, their short line might become a locked gate. The admiral began asking fishermen an odd question. He wanted the place where seawater behaved like a river in flood. One name returned across every harbor: Pilot Guy, a tide reader who marked currents with clay jars and rope. Guy brought no grand chart. He spread fish scales on a plank and moved them through drawn channels with seawater. He marked one strait where the tide reversed several times each day, funneling between rocks with crushing force at its peak. Remember that detail. The current did not support either side. It obeyed a schedule written by moon and coast. The old admiral compared Guy's jars with coastal logs, fishing times, wind notes, and reports from abandoned forts on shore. There was no miracle in those pages. There was repetition, and repetition meant a commander could build timing into terrain. At Myeongnyang, the shores squeezed inward until opposing ships could not spread. Black water twisted around submerged stone teeth. Foam circled in bowls. Mooring ropes hummed against posts. A floating branch stopped, spun, then raced north through spray. The admiral watched from a fishing boat while Guy counted breaths between whirlpools. Neither needed a speech afterward that morning. The strait could erase numbers, but only if the stronger fleet entered, compressed, committed, and facing the wrong current. Each condition posed a separate problem. The invaders needed bait, confidence, poor visibility, and no reason to wait at sea. Their scouts hunted surviving Korean ships among the islands. Every abandoned pier and burned storehouse suggested resistance had collapsed. At the northern approach, the invasion commander received those reports beside a lacquered cup and a dry navigation chart. A scout's note mentioned violent currents, then praised the absence of defenders. The commander folded it under the cup. By dawn, his leading squadron would enter the strait. Beneath them, the water had reached the end of its patience. The invasion commander saw 13 surviving hulls as debris awaiting collection, not a fleet designing his destruction beyond the narrow channel. His officers had spent months watching Korean ports burn, garrisons scatter, and supply convoys cross waters without challenge from any surviving warship. Victory had taught them a dangerous lesson. Korean resistance disappeared whenever disciplined ships pressed close and boarding parties gathered at the rails. The commander therefore treated the strait as a passage problem, something for pilots and tide tables, not strategy or serious command attention. Maps showed rocks and arrows for currents. They did not show how fear could move faster than orders aboard ships. Meanwhile, the old admiral inherited captains who avoided his eyes, sailors missing pay, and decks patched with household timber. He did not ask whether they felt brave. He asked which cannon worked, which ropes held, and who knew tides. This method denied panic its favorite fuel, uncertainty. Every measured barrel, tested axle, and assigned station reduced one unknown. At sunrise, crews rolled cannon across damp planks, listening for warped wheels and loose iron beneath the salt-stained carriages. Men who had deserted returned from fishing villages after hearing that the admiral meant to remain at sea with them. Some carried naval coats folded beneath grain sacks. Others brought chisels, lamp oil, dried fish, or information about enemy anchorages. The fleet grew no larger, but it became less imaginary. Names returned to stations, and stations returned to ships. During inspections, the admiral touched every repair seam and rejected fresh paint. Paint impressed courts, not incoming cannon fire. Under one gun port, he found a carpenter filling a split with paper. The paper was an unpaid ration order. A kingdom was asking men to defend its coast while owing them rice. Administration had acquired a sense of humor. He ordered grain released from a local storehouse, then signed the receipt himself. Trust began with breakfast, not banners. But 13 hulls remained 13. No repair could change the arithmetic. The admiral needed a battlefield where arithmetic would arrive late and formation would arrive broken. Pilot Yi returned with tide marks cut into bamboo, each notch tied to moonrise, wind, and water height at the harbor. He explained that Myeongnyang did not carry one current, it inhaled and expelled the sea through a stone throat. During peak flow, vessels entering against it lost steering force. Those behind kept moving, compressing every gap before them. When the flow weakened, whirlpools shifted position. A captain following yesterday's safeline might find rock beneath today's foam. And when the tide reversed, ships aligned for advance could face their own crowded rear while drifting backward toward hidden reefs. Yi added one warning: wind could alter minutes, rain could hide markers, and no table promised obedience from water. The admiral asked how fishermen managed uncertainty. Yi answered that they watched foam, birds, kelp, and anchored rope before choosing passage. That answer shaped the plan. The fleet would trust observation above schedules, with Guy reading the surface beside the flagship's helmsman. Colored pennants would report current changes. Drums would carry commands through fog, spray, and the groaning of crowded timber. Several captains objected that signals meant little if enemy ships surrounded them. Their hands remained flat upon the charts. The admiral placed 2 bowls on the narrowest line. Then he poured pebbles toward them from a helmet across the table. The first pebbles passed. Those behind jammed, climbed over one another, and scattered from the wooden table edge onto floorboards below. He did not claim 13 ships could defeat hundreds. He claimed hundreds could prevent themselves from fighting as hundreds. This was the gamble. Strength would become congestion, confidence would become haste, and seawater would become an unseen wall. But the plan required one ship to hold before the others believed holding was possible under those conditions at all. The captains understood which ship he meant. Nobody reached for tea, though steam rose beside the chart in thin curls. If this analysis sharpens how you see strategy, subscribe. Each week we examine another battlefield where weakness becomes leverage. Over the next days, lookouts occupied headlands with wicker screens. Fishing boats measured enemy departures by sail shadows at dusk. The admiral let several scouts glimpse his ships withdrawing south. Their report offered the invasion commander what pride preferred to hear. At the northern anchorage, crews loaded ladders and grappling lines. Officers argued about precedence within the expected pursuit column. Before dawn, Yi watched a lantern reflection bend against its mooring rope. The flood current had begun losing force. Then the headland signal rose, one black pennant, then another. Beyond the mist, layered sails entered the northern approach. The black pennants tell the flagship that enemy scouts have crossed the outer headland, with the main formation close behind. Dawn reveals sails in layers beyond the mist, each row suggesting another squadron, another transport group, another reserve still hidden. The old admiral studies them through a brass tube, then orders breakfast served across every deck before anchors rise. This looks mundane, but hungry crews rush tasks and miss signals. He wants no haste on his side today. Clay bowls of rice sit beside cannon carriages, while sailors tighten armor cords and check slow matches under waxed covers. The admiral walks the flagship's waist, touching rope coils, water casks, and spare tillers without offering encouragement or prophecy. His captains receive sealed instructions naming rally points, retreat channels, and the signals for advance, withdrawal, or damaged steering. He expects confusion, so every order answers one question: what should a captain do when the flagship disappears behind spray? Yi kneels beside the starboard rail and lowers a weighted line. The rope pulls north, but its angle begins shrinking. The current still opposes the approaching fleet, yet its grip will weaken before reversing toward the direction of their advance. Timing matters more than firepower. If the enemy enters too soon, the current may shield them from pursuit inside the strait. If they enter too late, reversed water will carry them through the strait before congestion can trap their rear. The admiral must expose weakness at the exact hour when the invaders mistake invitation for surrender and commit everything. The gate was closing. At the southern anchorage, mooring lines fall into boats and 13 warships turn toward the narrows under shortened sail. No cheering follows them. Families watch from stone steps beside mended nets and baskets filled with untouched morning fish. A woman sets a folded coat upon the pier after recognizing its owner aboard the last ship entering the channel. The coat remains beside a ration ledger, whose final column records rice owed to sailors presumed dead after Chilcholyang. Among the captains, fear appears through practical questions: distance between ships, powder allotments, and whether retreat markers remain visible. The admiral answers each one, then places his flagship at the front where every doubtful captain can see it. That position is not symbolic. Enemy pressure will reach him first, and any backward movement will infect the line. The ships reach Myeongnyang as mist lifts from the cliffs, exposing foam scars that curve across black water below. Guy studies kelp strands passing a rock while the helmsman watches tension in an anchored rope beside him at the rail. They are not watching a clock. They are reading force, direction, and the few warning signs before reversal begins. Crews lower sails, stack boarding shields near the rails, and uncover cannon without lighting every match at once on deck. Smoke would reveal readiness. The admiral wants the first enemy officers to see hesitation, distance, and an escape route. He orders 12 ships behind the flagship in a staggered line, using rocky shoulders to hide its true depth. From the northern entrance, the formation resembles scattered survivors rather than a prepared barrier anchored upon chosen ground in the strait. 3 invasion scouts round the headland. Their narrow hulls rise and vanish between swells as signal flags climb above them. A Korean lookout raises a red pennant, then grips the halyard when more masts emerge behind the scouts in ranks. The admiral gives no firing signal. He turns his flagship across the current, exposing its broadside and apparent vulnerability. To watching scouts, the maneuver looks uncertain, a damaged ship struggling to align before flight through the southern exit. But the flat bottom grips shallow water, and the broad deck brings more cannon toward the narrow approach lane. This decision seems like geometry. It is survival. The flagship must strike without offering its weakest angle to boarders. At the northern approach, the invasion commander receives 3 signals: enemy sighted, enemy few, enemy withdrawing south through narrows. Those flags confirm everything his campaign has taught him. Resistance exists as fragments, and fragments vanish when pressed with force. A pilot points toward torn foam and recommends waiting for slack water. The commander asks how many defenders remain. 13 comes the answer. followed by laughter from officers whose ships extend beyond the visible curve of coast behind them. The commander chooses an elite Vanguard for the pursuit. Fast vessels will pin the flagship before heavier squadrons arrive. At Myeongnyang, Yi sees the anchored rope sag. Across the northern water, enemy prows begin entering the stone throat. The first invasion vessels enter bow first, their hulls pitching where opposing currents wrinkle the channel beneath them like cloth. Behind them, signal flags order pursuit while officers point toward the solitary Korean flagship waiting broadside near rocks ahead. Guy watches foam detach from a reef and gather around the reef's western face. The old current is dying beneath the ships. The admiral raises one hand. Cannon crews lower smoldering cord toward touch holes, but nobody fires before his arm falls. The Vanguard closes until painted faces become visible on helmets. Grappling lines lie coiled along their forward rails for boarding. Then his arm falls. White smoke folds across the flagship's deck, and the channel answers with a sound cliffs return from both shores. Water rises before the leading vessels. Splintered rails, fallen pennants, and abandoned ladders tumble among the foam behind them. The admiral orders measured volleys, each aimed where the channel forces approaching hulls into one compressed lane before him. His guns do not need to reach hundreds, they need only block the first ships from clearing space astern. The first captain attempts a turn, but current catches his stern and presents the vessel across those following behind. Oars strike neighboring hulls, sails overlap, signal flags vanish behind masts, spray and smoke trap between cliffs on shore. Along the Korean line, 12 captains watch the flagship disappear inside smoke and conclude the enemy has surrounded it. Their ships edge backward, one stern after another, opening water behind the admiral at the moment he needs support. Signal drums order advance, the cliffs return the beat, yet distance and spray make every rhythm sound uncertain to them. For several minutes, the flagship remains alone before the advancing Vanguard, broadside against numbers no captain would accept elsewhere. A cook crouches beside an overturned rice pot, holding its lid above the slow matches to shield them from spray. The admiral sends a boat carrying one order to the nearest captain: return now, or explain his absence after reaching shore. No speech accompanies it. The messenger carries the admiral's seal inside a sleeve, darkened by channel spray and soot. Now turn the camera north onto the invasion commander's deck, where victory still appears close enough to touch before him. He sees one Korean flagship under pressure, 12 companions withdrawing, and his own elite crews closing the distance across yards. Every visible fact supports commitment. None reveals the weakening current beneath him or the returning captains beyond smoke to the south. He orders more squadrons into the strait, because leaving space unused would allow the defenders to escape the narrowing channel. This is the exact response the old admiral needed. Pressure at the front summons greater pressure from behind within minutes. The commander's pilots raise warning pennants as whirlpools migrate from the eastern rocks toward the crowded center lane below them. But their signals compete with pursuit flags, squadron markers, and smoke pouring from vessels already inside the narrows ahead. He receives 3 reports. The Vanguard is advancing, blocked, and turning at once. Each report is accurate from somewhere. That is what congestion does to command. It converts one battlefield into several incompatible realities separated by yards of water. A damaged scout vessel drifts past with its mast down and an untouched message tube tied beneath the rail. The message warns that Korean ships are returning. Nobody reaches the tube before the vessel passes into smoke astern. South of the flagship, the nearest Korean captain sees the admiral's seal and orders his helmsman back north toward smoke. One ship follows him, then another. Their bows emerge beside the flagship as the enemy Vanguard attempts to regroup. The admiral does not acknowledge their return. He points toward a vessel carrying the Vanguard's largest command banner ahead. The Korean captains understand the target. Remove visible command, and the crowded enemy line must interpret smoke without guidance. Moments later, smoke covers the banner. When wind opens a gap, only its broken staff remains above tilted planks. From the invasion commander's deck, the missing banner looks like confusion, not catastrophe. He sends replacement signals toward it. Replacement flags cannot penetrate layered sails. Drums carry across water, but cliff echoes deliver commands from false directions to crews. Beside the Korean helmsman, Yi notices kelp stop against a rock, then lift and point toward the north again. He raises the blue pennant for reversal. Across 13 decks, sailors tighten ropes and captains turn their bows north. At that same moment, the invasion commander sends his reserve into the strait as water beneath its leading hulls begins running north. The blue pennant climbs above the flagship as reversed water gathers beneath 13 Korean hulls and drives them north toward the enemy. At first, the change appears trivial. Foam shifts, ropes slacken, and floating debris pauses between opposing forces within the channel. Then, the strait chooses a direction. Kelp streams north, whirlpools widen, and every crowded invasion vessel feels its stern pulled backward. The leading ships try to advance against it, while those behind enter with momentum, their bows committed, and nowhere to turn. Wood touches wood before officers understand the tide has changed beneath them. A narrow pursuit column becomes a floating barricade. The old admiral orders every Korean ship forward, not toward open water, but into the enemy's compressed and leaderless front. Flat-bottomed hulls answer their rudders inside the turbulence, where deeper invasion vessels yaw, collide, and lose their firing angles. Cannon smoke settles along the water. Through it, Korean bows appear, vanish behind rocks, then return from another angle as new thunder rolls. The current performs the work 13 ships cannot. It denies steering, separates commands, and delivers crowded targets into range. This is not water-assisting courage. It is terrain-converting preparation into force while punishing every unexamined assumption the invaders carried. Now the trap closes. At the northern entrance, reserve ships meet the reversed current and bunch across the passage, blocking retreat before receiving orders. Commanders raise withdrawal flags, but vessels inside the smoke can see only masts, cliff faces, and sails pressing behind. Some captains cut anchor ropes, others lower sails. Each sensible action worsens the shared obstruction because nobody controls the whole. One vessel grounds near the eastern rocks, its deck empty except for a fallen fan and 3 sealed order cases. Inside those cases are commands for formations that no longer exist, addressed to officers hidden beyond drifting smoke and spray. From his deck, the invasion commander searches for the Vanguard banner and finds only splintered poles moving against the current. He orders his flagship ahead to restore control. The order places another large hull inside the channel's worst compression. A pilot grips the chart with both hands and points south, where retreat remains possible before the next squadron enters. The commander sees Korean ships advancing through smoke and rejects withdrawal. 13 hulls cannot dictate movement to his fleet. That belief survived every earlier victory. Here it becomes a chain linking pride, congestion, and a current beyond command. The nearest Korean captain brings his ship beside the flagship, closing the gap he abandoned when the first Vanguard appeared. Other captains align on his wake, their fear replaced not by confidence but by visible proof that formation holds. The admiral divides each thunderous answer by drumbeat, preventing crews from wasting powder on the same obscured vessel ahead. 1 beat marks the front, 2 mark command banners, 3 send ships toward the rocky shoulder before another advance. The system is crude, which makes it useful. Complex signals would die inside smoke, echoes, torn rigging, and spray. If this breakdown changes how you read unequal battles, subscribe. The decisive consequence is still approaching through the strait. Guy watches the foam race north, then curl toward a western inlet where hidden rocks disturb the strongest flow. He signals a slight turn. The flagship crosses that seam, gains steadier water, and sends thunder down the jammed lane. The remaining Korean ships copy its angle, transforming local knowledge into a moving corridor their opponents cannot recognize through smoke. At the invasion front, officers attempt boarding approaches, but current rotates their hulls before grappling lines can find stable purchase. Ladders slide into the channel. Empty helmets follow them, bobbing between oars while intact banners drift toward the northern entrance. The image reaches reserve crews before formal reports do. They see their own standards returning without the vessels carrying them. Rear captains begin turning across the current, seeking room outside the narrows before the obstruction reaches their own decks. Their turn blocks incoming squadrons. Orders from the flagship now confront a stronger message written by retreating sails ahead. The invasion commander raises a black command flag, demanding advance, while his helmsman measures shrinking water between neighboring hulls. A messenger boat leaves with duplicate orders, crosses one wake, then loses its passage behind a grounded transport ship. No single loss decides the battle. The system fails because every local correction produces another obstacle somewhere else in the channel. South of the smoke, the old admiral sees enemy sails folding northward and orders his line deeper into the narrows. Then, Yi points beyond the flagship. A second tidal surge is forming, stronger than the reversal now carrying them forward. The second surge strikes beneath the Korean line, strengthening its northward drive while the packed invasion ships lose the last navigable gaps. The admiral keeps his bows inside Guy's corridor, where steadier water permits 13 crews to reload, turn, and maintain mutual support. Northward, the invasion commander now sees retreating standards, grounded hulls, and replacement signals swallowed by masts from his own reserves. He orders withdrawal before the stronger surge arrives, but command has become a request passed between ships without room to obey. Black flags descend, rise elsewhere, and disappear again. Captains nearest open water turn first, leaving those inside without guidance. The rear formation opens like a torn net, each vessel seeking safety while reversed water carries confusion toward the northern anchorage. The fleet breaks. Across the channel, sails recede behind spray. Broken ladders, loose shields, and sealed orders circle among the reefs they ignored. The admiral refuses a reckless chase into open water because his advantage belongs to this strait and expires beyond its rocks. Instead, he reforms the line, checks powder, and waits for another attack while lookouts count departing sails through the clearing air. All 13 Korean warships remain afloat. The invasion force leaves dozens of vessels lost, disabled, grounded, or abandoned behind. On the flagship, a clerk records damaged planks beside an unfinished bowl of rice, reducing survival to columns of ink. The tactical result is astonishing, but its strategic consequence matters more. The southern sea road is no longer secure. Enemy transports can still sail, yet every convoy must consider interception, delay, escort, weather, and another narrow water trap ahead. For armies ashore, that uncertainty means fewer supplies arriving on schedule and greater dependence upon mountain roads already consuming animals. The invasion does not collapse that afternoon, but its momentum loses the maritime certainty on which deeper advance had depended. Reinforcements later rebuild Korean naval strength, while Allied fleets tighten pressure along the coast and threaten future supply movements. Myeongnyang did not end the war. It prevented defeat from becoming permanent at the moment permanence looked inevitable ashore. The lesson is not that courage defeats numbers. Courage without position would have delivered 13 ships into open water destruction instead. The lesson is that a weaker side must change the system before contesting strength, making the opponent's scale expensive. In business, politics, or ordinary conflict, the useful question is not how to match resources, but where resources become congestion. The admiral owned 13 ships, one tide reader, and a narrow channel. He arranged them until abundance became a liability. Today, the Myeongnyang shore holds roads, memorial stones, observation points, and a bridge stretched above the same restless water. Visitors hear traffic and gulls while tide lines curl around rocks below, repeating the mechanism that once divided an armada. Subscribe for more strategic history. Next week, an open gate, an empty camp, and one pursuit will destroy another superior army.